Welcome back to the Bankless Blobcast.
Blobs.
We're talking about the Blobs are live on Ethereum mainnet. Let's set some context. So this was a major Ethereum upgrade, a hard fork that just happened. It happened on March 13th, right? So this was Wednesday of this week. It's called Dencun. Can you give us the highlights? So why was this upgrade so significant, and what did it do?
So EIP 4844, which is like the shining star of the upgrade of the Dencun hard fork, is what introduces Blobspace to the Ethereum Layer 1 protocol. Blobspace is a specific lane of transactions that's separate from Blockspace. So we have all the normal transactions that everyone has ever been making on Ethereum has always been going into Blockspace. What do blockchains do? Blockchains sell blocks. Well, now the Ethereum Layer 1 also sells blobs. And blobs is a blob is kind of it's actually a technical term, believe it or not, for just like arbitrary data. We're gonna package up arbitrary data, and that is a blob, and we're gonna put that blob in the layer 1 blob space. Think of it like a high occupancy vehicle lane, an HOV lane for Ethereum layer 2 transactions. So on the Ethereum layer 1 currently, we're all driving in our individual cars, 1 car per person. It's not that efficient, and we're all having to pay high gas fees in order to do stuff on the Ethereum layer 1. Even layer 2s are inside of the same kind of congested lanes that all the individuals are using. Now, layer 2s, because they are high occupancy vehicles, they're bundling up thousands of transactions from thousands of users. They are, instead of posting that as data inside a block space, they get to wrap that in a blob and post that into Blobspace. And so they all get to move faster through the carpool lanes and get from point A to point B faster for cheaper because of Blobspace. And so this actually is not affecting gas on the Ethereum layer 1 for layer 1 transactors. This is significantly decreasing the fees on Ethereum layer 2s. That's my summary. We've got blobs.
That's great. That's great.
Blocks.
I've never heard that analogy, David, of a HOV lane, but I think that's
who
perfect.
made that? Who made that analogy?
Vitalik.
No, well, maybe, but the first time I heard it was from our Josh at Bankless.
Awesome.
Which made it into the actual like live stream of just like, this is the way that you explain blobs. So
that's great.
If our Josh, who's actually the guy listening to this editing this podcast right now, if he made that, well done. It's become enshrined as like the best metaphor to explain Blobspace.
Well, shout out Josh. Thank you. And here's another metaphor. This is one that Chris Dixon uses, and this is kind of an internet metaphor. So this upgrade essentially made layer 2s really, really cheap. And another way to phrase that is basically increase the capacity, increase the bandwidth of layer 2 block space, essentially. So this is almost like us getting from the 1990s on the internet to the 2000s. You know, you had dial-up modem or through your phone line. I mean, a lot of people don't remember that, but that's how the internet used to be in the 90s. And then in the 2000s, we started to get high bandwidth systems, started to get broadband, essentially. And we just did that in Ethereum overnight. Phase 1 of increasing our broadband. So this is kind of Ethereum's broadband moment, I would say. And you're going to experience that not on Ethereum mainnet. It's going to be just as expensive as ever. Fees are not going down ever on Ethereum mainnet. I think we've talked about that so many times before. Well,
we have the Verge, actually.
True. The
we
Verge.
Do have
but
the Verge.
I don't want to get people excited about that. That should not be your expectations.
Be their expectations.
That's like a 3 to 5 year type thing. But fees are going to get really cheap.
That's a 2025 thing.
Oh my gosh. Well, stop being so bullish, David.
I'm getting bullish.
So anyway, what's happened is layer 2 fees have gone down basically overnight. And so let's talk about them. Let's just go through it. So this is, what are we looking at? ZK Sync, which was the first layer 2 to start using this brand new
Congrats
high
to ZK
occupancy.
Sync. First blob on the layer 1 from ZK Sync. Well done.
Look at the transaction fees falling.
Just go into absolute zero.
So that's how it looks in a chart. But if you're using something like the Argent wallet on Starknet, right, which is another layer 2 that has adopted a Blobspace, your transaction fees for doing an in-app swap in your smart contract wallet went from $6.82 overnight to 4 cents for the same transaction.
And Argent is a smart contract wallet, so it actually generally have more fees And so like specifically things like Argent and other like smart contract wallets have really been looking for this.
Yes.
4 cents is actually on the higher side of the types of transactions that I've seen. Here is a chart of optimism of the median gas fee on OP stack chains between OP mainnet, Zora, and Base, hovering around like 90 cents. And then now they are dropping down to somewhere between like 1 and 5 cents. Liam from Optimism says, Optimism just enabled 4844 a few minutes ago from 32 cents down to 0.0004 cents for a transaction. That is optimism. Base is also a thing. This even attracted the attention from Brian Armstrong because Base is also, of course, an OP stack chain. Brian Armstrong says, this is huge. Reducing transaction fees and confirmation times on layer 2s will open up so many more use cases for crypto. We are finally getting scalability. He's, of course, retweeting Jesse Pollock's tweet saying, after 2 years of hard work, Blobs are now live on Base. Before, 31 cents. After, 0 cents. But he actually means 0.0005 cents. The network fee quoted inside of the Coinbase app to get from Ethereum to transfer Ether from Base to Base wallet to Base wallet is 0 cents. So like when Coinbase shows you like, here's a network fee, it's 0 cents. Like imagine the delight of retail users at this point in time.
It's kind of like, why even charge them at that point? It's so cheap, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I went and looked at this transaction that Jesse was showing, and just like the Ether scan on this is just absolutely hilarious. The transaction fee, 0.000000126 ETH. The gas price, there's too many zeros for me to even read out or count. That's like 9 zeros. The gas price was 0.00000001. That is absolutely insane for a $4 transfer. Zora, it doesn't stop there. Of course, the gas cost to mint on Zora was 61 cents. Now it is 0.0009 ETH. Granted, we are in day 1 of Blob. Actually, now this is day 2 of Blobspace consumption. And so we are approaching an equilibrium of all these layer 2s leveraging Blobspace. Fees are definitely down across the board. But the Blobs are about to go into price discovery.
Because when things get cheaper, when transaction fees get cheaper, we use more transaction fees, and that can increase the cost of these things over time. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that is what I'm saying. And we are also seeing activity on layer 2s pick up, but also we are approaching, let's see, this is a Doom board that we're going to look at from 0xRob. If you scroll down, you can see a blobs per block. And so blobs actually have a very similar mechanism to EIP 1559, where we are targeting 3 blobs per block. And if we have more than 3 blobs per block, then blobs get more expensive. If we have less than 3 blobs per block, then blobs get less expensive. We are under 3 blobs per block. And we have been since the inception of Blobspace. You want to scroll down a little bit. It's the blobs per block. There we go. So you can see that purple line. We are below the line, the target line of 3 blobs per block. And so this is why blobs are so cheap. As more layer 2s leverage Blobspace, we will get this thing called blob contention, which is the fee market for Blobspace. And so then blobs will start to increase the price of blobs because it is congested.
Yes.
And then what do we do after that, Ryan? We make more blob space.
Oh, yes. We have to keep making more blob space because we'll never have enough blob space ever.
Correct.
At this point in time. One thing that was really interesting to me, this is a chart of the layer 2s, the median price fee over time. And you're right, that most of these are like just now fractions of a penny, and this happened overnight. I was blown away at how fast layer 2s actually adopted this.
They were ready
and they're in a
to go.
competitive game to lower their fees as quickly as possible. But like almost all of them did. One outlier is Arbitrum, which I believe may have, look at this. It spiked down.
They did it 2 hours ago. Yeah. So actually that's a really important part of the story actually. So because Arbitrum, they were coming in at an 18-hour laggard into the Blobspace consumption. Why do they take long? Well, they have a DAO, so they have to actually get this through DAO vote.
Sure.
But also, they have this thing called ArbOS Atlas upgrade, which is just a normal Arbitrum software update for the Arbitrum layer 2 that also, in addition to leveraging Blobspace, independently of the lowering gas fees of Blobspace, will also lower gas fees by another 90% just because it's optimizations on the Arbitrum side of things.
That's so cool.
And so all of the layer 2s are able to squeeze out more juice from their own system. And then they are also getting a 90% gas fee reduction on top of that because of Blobspace.
And that happened
so
overnight.
I think Arbitrum is actually going to be one of the best tests to how can we really juice these systems? Because now we have Blobspace and Arbitrum is taking their next like additional 90% reduction in gas fees.
It feels like I've called it before, like an economic stimulus in terms of capacity, because it happened across all chains overnight. And my timeline was just so wholesome. I'm talking about my social media feeds, right? Of just people talking about, oh my God, like there was a lot of surprise at how cheap layer 2 fees actually got. I mean, some of these, I saw somebody tweet out something about Optimism or Zora or something like that being cheaper than Solana at this point.
Oh, that was me.
Oh, was that you, David?
That was me. Yeah.
Oh, you're trying to get some spicy tweets in? I mean,
it wasn't spicy. It was true.
It's factual. It was
a factual tweet.
Yeah.
Ethereum layer 2s are cheaper than Solana.
It's really impressive. Now, whether they'll stay that cheap, I don't know, but it's so cool to see it happening in concert across all of the layer 2s with this big Ethereum upgrade.
There's a really good tweet thread that I want to read out from Liam Horn, who talks about the perspective of EIP 4844 as more than just a simple protocol upgrade to Ethereum, because it was a bunch of cross protocol dev coordination across layer 2s and the Ethereum layer 1 protocol. And so there was so many moving parts to make this happen. So I thought this whole entire thread was fantastic. So I'll read through it. EIP 4844 is more than a tech upgrade. It is a substantial shift in how Ethereum core devs work at all, improving the relationship between research and client teams and welcoming layer 2 core devs. It might be the most important moment in the transition to the rollup centric roadmap.
Wow.
When we started 2 years ago, before the merge, there were tensions between the research and client teams. It wasn't always clear that the ideas on the research side were feasible to implement and took into consideration all the client complexity. This is one of the reasons why Proto Lambda and others conceived of Proto Danksharding, which is Pro 4844, which is what we just merged. It was a sort of prototype or an early iteration towards full Danksharding that was technically feasible and ready to ship ASAP. ASAP turned into 2 years, but this was even only possible because 4844 was a compromise. It made a massive dent in scalability, future-proofed full Danksharding, and took into account client complexity. It forced research, client, and layer 2 teams to work closely together. 1, Optimism made shipping 4844 a top priority and allocated multiple core devs to the effort. 2, Base team started working and contributing to 4844 before the idea of Base was even conceived. Prismatic Labs, 3, now part of Off-Chain Labs, that's Arbitrum, evolved into layer 2 development with 4844 as a gateway. And many, many more examples of the above. 4844 acted as a central project that unified the efforts of so many research, client teams, and layer 2 devs. It feels like we're in a whole new era compared to 2 years ago. Ethereum is feeling substantially more productive and pragmatic, and with layer 2 teams now a major part of the mix, the roll-up-centric roadmap is in full swing. When I read this, I just got goosebumps because especially with every single major hard fork that we do in Ethereum, I'm just reminded about how we are doing this crazy new thing called decentralized consensus and decentralized governance and decentralized coordination in order to discover the best paths forward that, in my opinion, the Ethereum core devs and researchers all collectively agree and come to consensus on what those are, and then they successfully merge them into the Ethereum protocol.
Absolutely.
And I just get goosebumps that we as humans can even like manage to produce something like that. And so I'll just like take a moment and say thank you to anyone involved with Dencun, EIP 4844, all the other EIPs, and actually like getting this thing into the Ethereum protocol. So many stakeholders needed to be just juggled, and it was done in just, super elegant fashion. So big thank you to everyone getting involved here.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is so popular. Like everyone loved it. Everyone loves cheaper fees. Everyone loves more bandwidth, more capacity. This was not contentious at all. And it's just a kind of a massive celebration. David, there was also some other upgrades that slipped in the Ethereum upgrade. One is that beacon block routes are now accessible in the EVM. Why is that important? Yeah,
so this is another EIP that was in Dencun that's aside from 4844. I just wanted to call out this one specifically because it's pretty cool. This is beacon block routes are now accessible to the EVM. The beacon block route is a consensus layer thing. The EVM is an execution layer thing. And so we have the beacon chain, and the state of the beacon chain, which is a block route, is now being made accessible to the Ethereum virtual machine, aka the Ethereum application layer, aka DeFi. So Light Clients brings out two exciting use cases: proof of validator behavior, and then efficient O of log proofs for historical block data. Basically, the proof of stake, the internet bond that is Ethereum, the staking and also restaking state of things is being made accessible to Ethereum's own DeFi application layer. And so the actual protocol, and this is really good for eigenlayer for AVSs that need to know the state of beacon blocks. So who's got the ETH where, and the AVSs of eigenlayer can now know that. Same thing with like LSTs and LRTs. And so this is just a stronger coupling between the proof of stake layer of Ethereum and the DeFi layer of Ethereum. I thought that was worth pulling out.
So I think a big question is we painted this picture of gas fees have gone down for now on layer twos, but demand is going to increase. And so they will increase in cost as things go. So where do we go from here? And there's two kind of categories I want to talk about for further reduction of layer two fees and expansion of the bandwidth of layer twos. One is on the Ethereum upgrade path. I'm going to let you talk about that. But the other is in parallel to all of this, what's actually happening is the layer twos themselves are improving in their ability to support bandwidth, execution bandwidth, let's call it. And so a few things that are happening. One, of course, we've talked about so much, which is parallelization of the EVMs, right? So of EVMs and also other virtual machines, like the SVM, putting that in a layer two. So we can have a very high throughput layer two that also increases our bandwidth and our TPS. We also have room to maneuver on ZK proving and verification cost decreases. So there's a lot of projects that are specifically working on that will really help our ZK VMs and our ZK rollups. And then there's also just generally, you mentioned Arbitrum deploying some more called transaction compression, some optimization in terms of how they're posting data to Ethereum. And so that is ongoing work and will continue to get better. I mean, I think Vitalik said there could be like gains of 3 to 5x just from compression alone. Right. And then everything else is still a bit too expensive. You still need like fractions of a penny. There's third-party DA solutions, one of which is Celestia, which we've talked about before. Then Eigenlayer DA is coming aboard as well, which will be an absolute massive expansion in terms of data availability bandwidth if Ethereum main chain is getting too expensive. So all of these solutions combined are going to continue to drop gas fees towards zero. Every time it spikes back up, there'll be an improvement and we'll get back down to zero. There's also mainnet improvements coming as well, David. So like, what are the next Ethereum upgrades and hard forks? What are they going to do for bandwidth?
I'll invoke the words of Mike Noiter here. We get 3x in terms of data availability. So Blobspace, the thing we just shipped, will get 3x larger for the next 3 to 4 years in a row. So we'll get a 3x by just increasing the blob count and gas modifications. We can kind of do that today. We'll get that throughout this year. In 2025, we'll get this thing called peer DAS, peer data availability sampling. And then in 2026, these are all like super hypothetical timelines. When dank sharding comes around, we'll get another 3x. And these are 3x's on top of each other. These aren't like linear 3x's, these are exponential 3x's. And so like gas fees are just dying on layer twos. They're going to zero. It doesn't matter how much induced demand we can get. We can also get more block space to like the logical conclusion. If we can't get there with mere just adding more data availability, we'll get there with ZK. The conclusion of layer two gas fees is that they go away. They go away for the end user. They are perceived to be zero. They aren't actually zero, but they are so close to zero that the meta will just converge on somebody. Some third party is going to pay for their users' transaction fees because that's a user acquisition strategy. Yep. Gas fees on the layer two are just like in the fullness of time, which is only 3-4 years, going away.
I agree.
It's going to be a feeless ecosystem.
Think about the internet, right? You don't pay server fees for using a website or for going on X or like doing something on Facebook, right? You won't pay fees, I think, in the future in these layer twos and layer threes.
To continue leveling up your crypto game, then you need to get on the Bankless newsletter. It's the world's most popular crypto email and is completely free. Just click below to sign up.